Hi guys, welcome to a new video on Halloween Horror Week. Today we will be ranking the top 10 scariest Doctor Who episodes in my opinion. This is my opinion only, so if you want to share your opinion, just share it in the comments and I will read it. Okay, so like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy it. So let's get to number 10. Heaven Sent. This episode is not scary in general. Like, there is some scary bits in it. Like, there's jump scares when the Doctor digs a grave up, and the monster is absolutely terrifying. Another quality what makes the monster scary is its movement and how it can walk very, very slowly, one step at a time, and it doesn't have to run at the Doctor because the Doctor is trapped. Because this whole episode is an isolation episode where the Doctor can't travel from one place to another because he's got no TARDIS, he's got no companion to help him, and he's literally only got, I don't even think he's got his sonic screwdriver, but I mean, he's so defenseless and helpless in this episode. He even gets scared at the monster because he doesn't know what to do at all. The reason why it's number 10 though is because throughout the episode, the Doctor talks to himself and the audience by monologues, so that's what takes the fear element away, the monologues. It's a phenomenal episode, like one of the best in the show. However, I don't think it's a very scary episode because of that, and how he constantly dies over and over and over. It does take away the scary element out of it as well. But it's a really good episode, but it's not as scary as all these other episodes. Number 9. Midnight. This is another really good episode, but I do think it's a little bit overrated. But I do love the scariness in this, how we can't see the monster whatsoever. It's another isolation episode, like number 10 is Heaven Sent. David Tennant's performance is phenomenal, like always. It also shows the monster's ability and how it can control people and make them say what they want them to say. So they could make them copy them, like what they did with David Tennant, how they made him copy what he said, what she was saying, and that so people think that the monster went into his body, but instead it stayed into her body to make them go against the Doctor, and he had no control over his own body. The scariest part of the episode is that we don't know what the monster looks like. We don't know what its weakness is, and we don't know if that's all it can do. It could do way more. So it's scary because it leaves the audience with what it could look like, what it can do, and it leaves up to interpretation, because this is the only appearance the monster has made. And to make it more of a claustrophobic setting, it's 1, on a plane, and 2, all the lights are off, so they can't see where they're going, and they've only got torches, which makes it much scarier and makes it more tense. However, the reason why it is number 9 is because it's not scary for me. When I watched the episode when I was a kid, it didn't scare me whatsoever, probably because I didn't understand it that well. It's a great episode like the last one, but it didn't scare me as a kid, so it's not as more impactful as the others on the list. Number 8. Hide. Now this episode is a very creepy episode. This took a more gothic, ghostly, paranormal approach, where it was about these ghost investigators, and they were investigating the ghost in the manor that's been there for hundreds of years. However, that is a very scary concept, but in the episode, it was scary to see the ghost and all the black and white, like flashes and lightning, but overall, it was an okay episode, but for scariness, it was better than the other two, in my opinion. But it did go off the rails at the ending, where it just became not scary and a bit boring, where it was more of a romantic story. And the twist of it being that the ghost was a ghost from the future, that was a bit nice, but overall it wasn't a good episode, and it was scary for the first half an hour, and then the last 10 minutes or so were more boring. But I mean, a scary episode nonetheless, but it didn't get me scared. So that's why it's only number 8 on here. Number 7. Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. To clarify, we're not ranking episodes, we're ranking stories. So if there's a 2-part episode, that will be one story and that will be one number. This 2-parter is another very popular story with the Vestinarad. And the reason why I've put this as number 7 because it is absolutely terrifying. I love how they make the darkness the main enemy in the story, and I like how it can take over people's bodies and control their suits, and you just see their corpse in the suit saying the last few words they ever said, and that is what makes this episode scary. And number 7, just the feeling of dying and then your voice just recorded the same sentence over and over and over again. Imagine that is your mate. Your mate just died and he's repeating the same phrase over and over again to you, and you just see his lifeless body, just skull and bones, walking towards you, and if it touches you, you just die. No, actually I'm wrong, because they don't touch you. The shadows kill you. So if you get anywhere near the darkness or the shadows, they will automatically kill you. That's why in this story, there's 2 shadows sometimes in the suit and they're already dead. You just know they're already dead. And the scariest bit is the bit where the Doctor, River Song, Donna and the others go and find this lifeless body of the young girl who has just got the job, who was like 20 odd. And you just see her skeleton with just a phrase saying, "Please help me," or something like that. And it's absolutely terrifying. The framing and everything is just beautiful. And that is why it's number 7. The reason why it's not any higher is because the other 6 are very scary in my opinion, because of how they affect me as a child. This one did scare me a little bit. I think that main scene did scare me. But overall, compared to every other episode / story in this list, is way scarier in my opinion because of my personal experience. Let's get on to number 6. Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone. Now this one is absolutely terrifying for me. When I was a kid, I was absolutely terrified of the Weeping Angels. I think they're the best monster ever in New Who, or in Doctor Who in general. But I remember when I was a kid, when this first broadcast, I was absolutely terrified. Wouldn't even watch it. I would refuse to watch it because I was so scared of the Weeping Angels. Just how they just kept move. You can't move them unless you see them. And because I've seen Blink before that, I was absolutely terrified. Wouldn't even go downstairs. The scenes in the episode that I thought were absolutely terrifying when I was younger was the bit where Amy was trapped in like this little camper van or something like that, and there's a Weeping Angel on the screen, but the Weeping Angel came to life and came towards Amy. So instead of it just being a recording where it was, we found out that a recording of an angel can become an angel. So it became an angel and tried to go right towards Amy. I was absolutely terrified. I was covering my eyes because I just didn't want to watch it because I was so scared. Another scene that scared me when I was a kid was the time where the angels were in the forest and they were just creeping up on Amy again and the Doctor. But this time Amy had to close her eyes because an angel was in her eye. And I thought Forest of the Dead was a bit scarier than Time of Angels because of the setting. However, I think what ruined it for me was the Weeping Angels did move their heads and you saw it, and that does take off the aspect of a statue moving when you're not looking at it. But I mean, these two stories were very tense. The secret of River Song was still open, going who is River Song, and I really enjoyed these two episodes, and it did brush a light on first introduction of Amy and River, and how it did hint about the Pandora opening, and the end of the episode. And there was also a bit where there was a crack, and it erased like some people. So like when Amy went, "Oh, you just went and sent someone," they went, "No one was here. No one sent you. It was only me." So it also showed you the event of the crack, and now she saw the crack was in the wall, but she could only open her eyes for a few seconds. Not even a few seconds, like a millisecond, so the Weeping Angel doesn't get her. But I mean, I thought the Weeping Angels were powerful and way more dangerous in this episode than Blink. However, I don't think it was as scary as Blink, because you had the doctors in there, and the doctor could sort it out. But I did also think the scariest part, if I had to name another scary part, was the bit where the Weeping Angels kept killing the soldiers, and then one of them pretended to be Bob and made the doctor angry by saying, "You didn't protect me, fear didn't protect me," and then trying to taunt the doctor, and that made him angry and actually do something else. So I would think they made the Weeping Angels more menacing and more scary in the episode, but not as scary as Blink, but more scary than Angels Take Manhattan and Flux. Number 5. Listen. I think this is the most recent episode that I've been scared of, and that's Listen from season 8, because I was still a child. I was about what? This came out in 2018, so I was still 17. I was 13-year-old, and the scariest bit is what was the main conspiracy, which is there were monster under the bed. But I mean, this is mainly scary because it expands on the monster under the bed. Because in one scene in particular is where the doctor travels back in time to when Danny was a kid in an orphanage, and what happened was there was a monster under these quotes, and it was raising up, and you could see like a silhouette of a head, and it was just looking at them. But like it's very similar to Midnight, how you cannot see the monster, and it's up to interpretation what the monster looks like. But it was too scary just by the lighting and the atmosphere, and now even the doctor was scared of it because he believes that there is a monster under the bed. And I also love the scene at the beginning where there's a dialogue saying, "Are we truly alone?" And that scene is very chilling to the bone. And the final scene that I'll talk about is the bit where it's in the future, and you see Danny's son in the future, where there's fate knocking on the door, but you find out that no one can be out there because of it being it's got no oxygen, and there's no suits, there's no one else on board, so who's doing the knocking? So that's obviously reminiscent to Midnight, where there's knocking on the aeroplane, but no one should be out there because it's unbreathable. But it's very scary. I'm not scared of it as much as I am now. It is an average episode, but I was terrified at the time, and even though I didn't have a monster under my bed, I felt like I had a monster in my closets. But it's a really good episode. Like, it's an average 5 out of 10, but it's something to get like a good scare out of you. So now we're on to number 4. Night Terrors. This episode is one of the scariest episodes of all time. And I think I am in the majority here, because I wasn't scared of dolls, and now I'm a bit scared of dolls, mainly because of this episode. I love the darkness, and I love how we focus on one child who's scared of everything, and that he puts it all in the cupboard. But the cupboard has become a gateway to the dollhouse where all the evil dolls or the things he's scared of are all in there. But the main twist about this episode is that the kid is not human, so that's why it's all happening. The scary bit is mainly the children, the girl rhyming like in Nightmare on Elm Street, and the laughter you hear off the dolls. It's just so creepy because it's not supposed to be there. And I hate the expressions on the dolls' faces. There's no expression whatsoever, which makes it even more terrifying. And how this also made me scared of lifts as well, because Amy and Rory goes in the lift and they travel down into the dollhouse. And that's terrifying. So it didn't just get one phobia, but it got two. Scared of dolls, and now I'm scared of lifts. Scene in particular that I am scared of is the bit where Amy and Rory's in the dollhouse and they're getting chased by the dolls, and then you just see someone shouting for help and the dolls touch them, and you just see how horrific it is. I can't believe it's a 12. How horrific. The man turns into the doll, where he just becomes faceless, then he turns white, and then he gets all hair down his face and all wooden, and you can hear all the sound effects. This is definitely Mark Gatiss' best script, and definitely one of the scariest in New Who. I don't think anyone can say otherwise. But, I mean, it's creepy because of the aesthetic. Just how simple, like, it didn't have to be high. It's not even high budget. Literally, it's houses and then a giant dollhouse. But I mean, it's the aesthetic, what the dolls actually look like, and how it's presented with the creepy music, and the dark atmosphere and everything. I'm utterly terrified. Every time I watch the episode now, it just gives me a chill, because I know how scary it is. But good scary, like very good scary. I really enjoy the episode, and I love how it shows that it's like a twist where, like, he thought he was a kid. He thought that was his son, but actually the son was faking into their lives and making them think it was a son, but it's just an alien. But I mean, just how it wraps up is good enough for me. And it's definitely the best episode from season 6 and best episode throughout. But I mean, it's so scary. So scary. Number 3. Rose. Some people might think, why is Rose, the pilot of Doctor Who in 2005, number 3 on the scariest episodes? It's not scary for me. Well, the reason why it's top 3 is because this was one that really impacted me, especially the monsters, which were the Autons / shop window dummies. After watching this episode, I was only about 5, 6. I was absolutely terrified of mannequins. I wouldn't walk into a shop if there's mannequins there. If there's mannequins in the window, I would refuse to go in the shop. I would cry and scream. I was that scared because I thought they were going to move, smash the windows and kill me. And I think this was one of the first episodes I've watched of Doctor Who, and it terrified me, and it's stuck with me since. It's a great episode, but I think it's impacted me more, and I think it's a better episode in my opinion because of my experience with this episode and how it's made me scared of shop window dummies. And every time thinking, every time I go to the shops, I used to think if they were there, they're going to smash the glass and then they're just going to walk and it's going to be absolutely terrifying. I have to run to save my life. But I mean, it was ambient, scary, and I think what made it better was it didn't look high quality, and I think that was the main reason which made it way better, because it wasn't high quality and it felt way more realistic than some, obviously, other Doctor Who episodes. Compared to now from then, it feels more realistic in 2005 in their episodes than it is now. Like, I was absolutely terrified of them. And I think the scariest bit for me when I was a kid was the bit where they smashed the windows at the end and killed lots and lots of people. And the bit where Jackie was screaming and it was all chaos in the bus. To be honest, now it's not as good. I think it's good, but not as good. But only because it's not scary for me now than it was back then. And what I think really was good, and I think they should come back. I do think the Autons should come back for another episode, and I wish they did come back for Flux, but they didn't. But it's a very good episode. Atmosphere, horror is up the roof. Mystery is also there because we don't know who the Doctor is, and we find out who the Doctor is. Find out the TARDIS. It's introduced me to new origin of Doctor Who in that episode. It's a very significant episode, a great opener, but it definitely scared me to bits when I was younger, and that's why it's number 3. Oh yeah, and there's one final scene I'll mention. In the beginning where Rose gets the lottery ticket, gives it and tries to find her mate in the beginning, that absolutely terrified me where the Autons just looked at her while she was walking by. That is another great scene and terrifying scene. Even now, it makes my hands shake. Just a little though, just a little. But I mean, phenomenal episode, but not as scary as these other two. Number 2. Blink. This is apparently the best episode of Doctor Who ever rated. And this doesn't even have the Doctor in it. But we're not going for the best episode, we're going for the scariest. This is the second scariest episode because it gives you the introduction to the Weeping Angels, what they are, how they can kill you, and that our protagonist isn't the Doctor. It's just a random person. A random, not even like a police officer, like just an investigator, someone just snooping around. And it just shows how scary the Weeping Angels are, with how in one scene where she goes into the abandoned house, like manor sort of thing, where the Weeping Angels base operation. And what happens is that her mate gets touched by the Weeping Angel, and then a knock on the door happens, and you find out that her son has gave her a note about what has just happened, but she doesn't have a son because she's the same age. She's only about 20 odd. And that doesn't make any sense. So she thinks it's a prank, but it's not. And you see photos and it's her. And it shows the Weeping Angel's power and how they can displace you out of time, because she ends up maybe in the 1930s, I think, or somewhere between there, in the early 1900s. And it's just so horrific how it's not a monster that just kills you. It just lets you live your life somewhere else, in another time zone where you're unfamiliar. And that's just worse, because it's not just 5 seconds and you're dead. You have to live that life just until you're dead. And that's what happens with another scene with a detective, where they talk about the Weeping Angels and give them a detective saying, can you investigate this? They investigate it, but they find out a TARDIS was there, and the Weeping Angels has took him, and she gets a phone call, and she goes to the hospital, and she sees it's the same guy, but about 60 years older. And he goes, it was raining when we first met. And she said, it's the same rain. And even that's horrific. It's terrifying, because when I was a kid, I'm scared of the Weeping Angels. That was the whole reason, because there was no doctor, and we didn't know how to get in this situation. I was absolutely terrified. I hid under the covers. I think I even walked away, just tried to run away, just so I didn't see the screen. And so every single night, I had nightmares upon nightmares of this, nightmares, and I couldn't even fall asleep. I think I was a 7-year-old then, but I was absolutely terrified, and no wonder it's the scariest episode. And the final scene I'm going to say is the scene where Sally Sparrow, who's our protagonist, gets CDs, and these CDs have these DVDs have the Doctor on them, because he got stuck in time by the Weeping Angels in the 60s and has been sending messages throughout in Sally's 25 DVDs, because she only owns like 25 DVDs, and they try and figure it out. And then at the end, when they defeat the Weeping Angels by trapping them and looking at each other and they can't blink, we find out at the end that the doctor that she meets is the past, and she gives her all the knowledge about the Weeping Angels because they've never met the Weeping Angels before. And that's like a time loop, because then they get stuck by the Weeping Angels and get sent back to the 60s. And that's how they know about the Weeping Angels, because Sally's already written everything about the Weeping Angels and gave it to him. So it's like a time loop sort of thing. But I am absolutely terrified of the Weeping Angels because of that episode. And it's a well-deserved episode. I just think it's a little overrated. My number one pick for the scariest Doctor Who story / episodes goes to The Empty Child and the Doctor Dancers. The reason why this is my number one pick for the scariest Doctor Who story I've ever seen is because I was absolutely terrified of a child in a gas mask walking about, just because of the episode and how they introduced this kid and what his powers are. Because how it goes is that there's a bomb or medical plate thing goes down into World War II, and what happens is the nanobots change this child who has a gas mask, thinking that everyone should have a gas mask, and that's the actual face. So if anyone comes into contact with the kid, touches them or anything, they will turn into a gas mask zombie, and they will just repeat the saying, "Are you my mummy?" Because that is what the child wanted, his mummy. And that is what will happen if everyone gets touched by this child. They will turn into a gas mask zombie with just those couple of words. And that chills me right to the bone. Because imagine that in the dark, a lonely boy standing there looking at you, just shouting, just speaking normally, "Are you my mummy?" down the street. That would be absolutely terrifying. And when I was a kid, I went somewhere where it was a Doctor Who event, and the gas mask child was there. Wasn't scared of no Daleks, no Slovene, but no Cybermen. But when that child came, I was sprinting across there. It wasn't just me. My other sibling was terrified of it too. Just a kid in a gas mask, not because of what he looked like, but because his powers, what he could do in the show, where he could turn into one of them, and it was absolutely terrifying. And it was just a simple concept, but the way they delivered it was so scary that I refused to watch this for a few weeks. I refused to watch Doctor Who when I watched Blink. I refused to watch that episode for about a year. I refused to watch this episode as well, but for a year and a half. So that's why it impacted me more. It's scarier more because I refused to watch the episode. Every time I watched season 1 again, I skipped these 2 episodes because it was too scary for me to watch. But now that I can watch it, it's a very good, very, very good episode story. I love the villain, and that kid will creep me out ever since. And that's why it's so scary for me. But it's so good at the same time. And the other memorable scene is when the Ninth Doctor goes, "Just this once, everybody lives," and shoots the nanobots right at them, and they all just heal off the gas masks. But as I said, the scariest bit is when another doctor turns into a gas mask, with how horrific, how like his face turns into a gas mask, and then he spits it out, and he goes, "Are you my mummy?" And that's just absolutely terrifying. And I've only watched it a few times, but I still love the story. And that's my ranking for the scariest Doctor Who episodes. I hope you really enjoyed it, because I've put a lot of effort into it, and I really enjoy making it. And showing how these episodes are scary for me with my personal experience with these types of episodes, and how these episodes made me love Doctor Who so much because of how scary they are. But, I mean, hope you like, comment, and subscribe. Because if you want more, then tell me. If you want more rank and tier lists of Doctor Who episodes, or anything else, maybe like horror movies. But instead, share below your comments of what your ranking would be for this top 10 scariest Doctor episodes. And happy Halloween.